Good evening, everyone.
I live in St. Louis now, but I can't.
And if that didn't get your attention, boy, this is better than the chambers. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Joint Commission CRA workshop for the WMODA project at the Ballroom, Monday, October 7th, 2024. Can I have the roll call, please?
Mayor Betty Resch?
Here.
Oh, Mayor Betty Resch.
Here.
Vice Mayor Sarah Maliga.
Present.
Commissioner Christopher McVoy.
Here.
Commissioner Mimi May.
Present.
Commissioner Reynaldo Diaz.
Here.
Thank you very much. I will lead the Pledge of Allegiance. I'm also, since the CRA is here and present as our partner tonight, I'm going to ask that the CRA just introduce themselves as well, so we know who's here.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Daniel Morgan.
Hi, I'm Donna Kerner.
Hello, I'm Drew Bartlett.
Hello, I'm Carla Bloxson, the board chair of the CRA.
Is that everybody?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. It's live streamed. This is being.
See it, but we could provide an opportunity for her
No,
to be able
she's
to
made it. No, thank you. The way the meeting is going to work tonight is that the WMODA people, which is on this side of the dais, many of them, are going to present the program about the project. We, neither the CRA nor the Commission, will interrupt until their program is over, and then it will be limited to comments, questions from the CRA and the Commission. So, having said that, welcome to the WMODA people. Thank you all for coming out tonight, and to those folks that are watching, have a great night. So, I'm going to turn this over then to staff. I'm going to give it to staff. Mr. Brown?
Good evening, everyone. Jamie Brown, Interim City Manager and Public Works Director. Madam Mayor, you kind of took the ball and ran with everything. I was going to introduce everyone, and
I've never been shy.
Thank you, Chairwoman Bloxson and the CRA board for being here. Obviously, our commission as well, Mayor Resch, our District 1 Commissioner, and Vice Mayor Sarah Maliga, District 2 Commissioner Christopher McVoy, District 3 Mimi May, and District 4 Reynaldo Diaz. I want to thank all of the public for being here. This should be a very interesting and very informational meeting that we have in front of us. I did want to acknowledge Arthur Wiener, who is here, as well as his daughters, Ariana and Gabriella, down there from the museum. I also want to now throw it to Renee Miller. If you could introduce your team before we get going here.
Thank you very much, City Manager Brown. With me this evening is also representatives from United Management, Mr. David Kastner. Also with us this evening are representatives from our architectural firm, HLW, Ms. Anna Amari and Mr. Bob Thomas. Representing the museum and the collection is Louise Irvine and Aaron Rimpley. Also representing our team is our economist, Mr. Paul Lampert. We also have Nick Tangretti, who is our project manager with United Management. At the end, we have Robert with Bowler Engineering. I am so sorry, Robert. And then we have Mr. DJ Duty, who is our attorney.
Thank you very much. Without further ado, if we want to roll into presentation.
I'll turn it back over to you, City Manager, to go through the overview.
Okay, so purpose of tonight, we're going to provide some background for this meeting, how this all came about, the goals and objectives for both the city and the CRA, the actual design that has been kind of that has come together over the past months here, the fiscal impact, as well as the deal structure, critical path, and then the next steps. Obviously, we have, as of right now, the CRA board meeting scheduled for tomorrow night, and then the city commission meeting scheduled for next Tuesday, the 15th. Obviously, storm out there. Not really sure what's going to happen moving forward, but as of right now, everything is still on schedule. Obviously, we'll be releasing information as we learn more about the path and what happens in the update tonight, and then tomorrow morning at the 5 a.m. update as well. Mayor, we'll get rolling into the presentation.
Wow, nobody can read that, huh? Hi, my name is Joan Oliva, and I'm the CRA director. We just put together a quick slide here with both background from the city and the CRA regarding downtown redevelopment, and wrote down a number of highlights here, and I won't go through all of them and bore you to death, but I will kind of walk you through the process that has gotten us here today. Back in 2011 to 2013, downtown LDR and comp plan updates were done by the city. From 2015 to 2017, the cultural master plan was completed, and interestingly enough, the implementation plan calls for enhancements of Lake Worth Arts brand, increasing of arts exposure, encouraging downtown growth, assembling land for density, and providing space for working artists, all of which are in this particular project. In 2018, the city undertook the downtown parking study, which is being updated as we speak. 2018 to 2019, the CRA and the city together made purchases of properties on both L and M streets, and together buying all these properties, we did 8 separate public meetings. In 2019, the HRPB, the Historic Resource Planning Board, Preservation Board, I was close, granted permission to the CRA to relocate or to demo structures with the condition that we would get a building permit for new construction. So once that was issued, we would be able to move or demo the structures. And we are actually going to move the structures according to this plan. In 2019, the CRA issued an RFP for the housing relocation of the historic homes. We did not receive any submittals. And then we had a number of very smart planners come in and kind of give us a little guidance, and that took place from 2021 to 22. We had Elizabeth Plattner-Zyberg, who presented to the city. We had Joe Minicozy, who presented online. And then in 2022, we had the downtown charrette, where the city asked the CRA to pay for the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council master plan. And we had numerous public meetings at that time. In 2023, the CRA hired Dover Cole to present the CRA with some language and some images to use for our next RFP that we were going to do. And that purpose of that was to bring LDRs and the master plan recommendations together for a developer to easily understand what exactly we were looking for. 2024, this year, early in February, we had a public charrette led by WMODA. And since early this year, WMODA has presented to the city every single month for a total of 8 months. And just a little history for you. Since 2018, the CRA has had over 40 meetings to discuss the L&M parcels. And we can only go back to 2021 with the city, but since 2021, the city itself has had 10 meetings to talk about the downtown parcels. Next slide, please. This is a little background for us. We definitely had a lot of goals to reach with this particular project. For the CRA and the city, we were looking, obviously, to expand the tax base, expand access to the arts, create an arts destination for tourism. We wanted high-quality housing for all income levels. We wanted to support our downtown businesses, increase daytime activation in the downtown to bring more jobs and more spending. We wanted to try to preserve the historic character of the downtown, and we wanted to align with the existing community fabric. And you'll see later in the presentation that this is what I believe and what I think many of us believe that this particular group has done. For WMODA, their goals were to find a permanent home for their museum. Originally, they were only going to do market rate apartments, but they've changed that in order to meet community needs. They wanted to create a campus feel. They have to do, obviously, a financially feasible project, or we wouldn't be here today. They needed revenue to support the museum operations for years to come. They wanted to provide classroom space, event space. They wanted to have committed partners with the CRA, the city, and others. They wanted community connectivity, and you'll see how that is drawn out in the plans. And they also wanted arts partnership opportunities. And as you know, Lake Worth is known for the arts. We have Ben Zeiton for the arts. We have a number of galleries. We have the Playhouse. We have the Cultural Council. So this is, I call it, the cherry on top. As far as the community was concerned, we heard quite a bit about height sensitivity. The community did not want anything as tall or taller than the Lucerne on Lake Avenue. They wanted transparency in the process, and we've done our best to do that by giving updates at every single CRA meeting. We also have they have a website called Lake Worth Loves, no, excuse me, I always get that wrong. WMODA Loves Lake Worth Beach. They wanted community engagement. They wanted to preserve and expand our parking because regardless of what project happens on L&M, those 65 spaces will be going away. They wanted activation of the alleyways, which this project does. They wanted to create a sense of place. They wanted community gathering spaces, preservation of historic structures in the historic district, quality infill development, and sensitivity to the existing character of Lake Worth Beach, and last but not least, walkability in our downtown. Next slide, please.
Good evening. It's William Waters, Community Sustainability Director for the City of Lake Worth Beach. What you have posted up before you and those who are watching online is a conceptual outline of how the WMODA project could follow an urban mixed-use plan development process under our land development regulations, and also taking advantage of several nuances with our comprehensive plan and our affordable housing program. The WMODA Museum would be at the southwest corner of Lake Avenue and M, and it's sort of a lavender color. It may not show up as lavender on television. It may be sort of a pink color. To the south of it is an arts alley, which will be an improvement of the alley running east-west from M to L. And then you'll see tonight a proposal for the city to help continue that arts alley from L to K, which would then get you to the site where the city has a surface parking lot where we hope to build a parking garage to serve the needs of the downtown going forward the next at least 10 or 15 years. Joan did mention the loss of some parking spaces, but even beginning back in 2018, there was a deficiency of parking as the city's downtown grew and the vacant spaces were infilled. Back over to the right, south of the Arts Alley, is a proposed apartment complex, which would have 110 units, 8 of which would be live-work units for artists. We've also collaborated with the Cultural Arts Council. They have the green space that is land that they are going to include in the proposed plan development that could be developed at a later date. That property will be available to develop following some restrictions that are placed on it by the donors, the Montgomery family. And that could be housing, it could be more art space, it could be an expansion of the Cultural Council. That's yet to be determined. Then you see a city parking lot that's going to stay at surface parking lots. And then 2 other parcels that are at the bottom on First Avenue on the other side of K Street is a site that the CRA owns where affordable workforce housing could be built, and then a smaller piece where we do intend to relocate 3 of the historic structures, 2 from 17 South M Street, and then the quadruplex that's located on L Street. and that would be for affordable or workforce housing. The other contributing structure we'll talk about a little bit later, but it would move to another site on South J Street. So that's the conceptual design. This is how the entitlement application is looking to be submitted. It'll have all those components, and you'll hear about that a little bit more later. Next slide. So with WMODA, and it wasn't really mentioned, but WMODA first approached the CRA early, or I guess late in 2023, and we had the opportunity to go visit their collection, and it was quite an opportunity. The collection is not visible to the public right now, and it's an amazing experience, and the opportunity of bringing that to foster interest and exposure and a variety of things for downtown Lake Worth Beach was an opportunity that we all wanted to see if it could work. And so there's three main pieces of this. Was in discussing how WMODA could move forward in Lake Worth Beach was to preserve and relocate the 4 contributing structures that are there, which is included in this proposal. The 2 that are now serving the Leisure Services Department would actually stay within their confines, and they would use those buildings, and we'd likely connect them with some kind of hyphen. There's financial support for a K Street parking garage. The parking garage has been discussed for at least the past 6, if not 7 years. And so this provides a vehicle to help move that along at a far lower financial exposure for the city than it would be otherwise. And the last would be implementation of a parking program for downtown. And I know the last 2 or 3 city commission meetings, the question's been asked of me how to deal with unregulated parking within the neighborhoods, and part of this program is to implement a parking program that would help allay some of the concerns and congestion within the neighborhoods themselves.
Thank you. Here's another great slide that you can't read. And I'm not going to go over all the benefits to the CRA, but as many of you know, the CRA has a redevelopment plan that is put together when we were established. And in the redevelopment plan, there's a number of redevelopment goals and objectives. And it was quite interesting for this particular project to go through all those goals and objectives, because every time I found one, I was going, yep, check, check, check. So just to go over a few of them, in the redevelopment plan, it calls for a consolidation of small parcels to allow new construction and stable growth. It is to make the redevelopment area competitive with other activity centers. And again, this will happen when WMODA is built and works closely with the Gulfstream, the Benziton, the Cultural Council, the Playhouse, and other downtown businesses. Initiate infill housing projects on existing or newly vacated land, which we are doing with the historic homes. Restore historic homes that may be in a state of deterioration. And we have 2 that are probably in a pretty good state of deterioration, but we are going to work with our housing partners, and we are going to turn those into affordable units. Not workforce, but actually affordable for people making less than 80% of area median income. So that will produce another 8 units on top of the 8 units that will be provided by WMODA for affordable housing. Encourage mixed use and multi-family development in the downtown. Encourage private efforts towards building housing in the redevelopment area. And finally, capitalize on development and redevelopment opportunities, again, associated with our downtown. Next slide, please.
Thank you, Joan. As far as the benefits to the city, as far as goals and objectives, parking. I've been here since July of 2011, and this has been a topic that has been going on for a very, very long time, which culminated in 2018, a parking study that the city hired WGI to perform this parking study to address some of the capacity issues that we were having in the downtown. Not just currently, but moving into the future, where we're going to obviously need more capacity as our downtown storefronts fill up again and are occupied. So what we did was there was also an update in 2020, and right now they are just now completing the 2024 update of the parking study with updated data and everything. Now, what came about over the last 8 months was a collaboration between the city, the CRA, and WMODA, as far as being able to possibly collaborate on a structure downtown that would address a lot of these capacity needs that we need to address sooner than later. And the large benefit for the city is that if we don't take an opportunity like this, we are then looking at trying to figure out what this parking solution would be, how this parking solution would be funded, which our finance director Yannick loves, because we're more than likely looking at some type of bonding or 20-year note with some ridiculous interest rate or something like that. So being able to utilize possible construction of the museum, the residential component, utilizing the same contractors, the same design firm, utilizing everything that's already going to be happening there, kind of piggybacking on that, which would save quite a lot of money over the long run for the city. It would also finally address these capacity issues we were talking about downtown. And a big issue, which I know we get a lot of calls about just in public services since we're over the public right-of-ways, is on the weekends in downtown when the parking is at capacity, oftentimes that parking stretches into the neighborhoods. So we get a lot of complaints as far as people parking in front of other people's homes. I mean, obviously there's no reserved parking, but that is an issue. So we do need to address how this is going to happen as well. So this parking plan will be presented to the commission very soon. We are in receipt of a final draft, which we're kind of going through and have incorporated a lot of that data and information into what you're going to see tonight. But ultimately, it's going to be coming forward pretty soon because we're just at a point now where this is just something that's going to have to be addressed. We've kind of kicked the can down the road as long as we possibly can, but it's time to finally do something about it. So I'm going to pass it on. Next slide.
Thank you, City Manager Brown. One of the things that our team has been very diligent in doing is trying to participate. Thank you. Trying to participate very closely with the team at the city and the CRA and the community. This objective is something that we were extremely passionate about. As you can see, there are many of us here today, and this is not all of us. And before I get into the presentation, I called our hardest working member, Robert Bowler. It's Robert Morgado from Bowler, so I'm so sorry, Robert. He's at the end of the table, and he gets his name wrong, so that's on me. But ultimately, this is just a small representation of our project team. We've been working diligently and quite hard with your staff for a very long time and with the residents. And I share that not to brag, but share that to show the commitment that we have had for the last almost year in moving this project forward. So with that, I think that Joan mentioned that a little bit in the beginning of the presentation. The sheer number of times for which we worked through public comment for this particular development, going all the way back to the first time that we made an official presentation to the CRA board in February. Every month since that time, we have met with the CRA and provided an update. We've hosted charrettes. We've gone to neighborhood meetings. We've talked to anybody who would talk to us. We've sent our email out. We've answered questions. We've tried as best as possible to understand the issues, and I think we've said this very early on. We know we're not going to make everybody happy. Nothing's perfect. But we're going to try to at least understand the issues and, where feasible, address them. And we believe quite wholeheartedly what you'll see today is that first step at that. We all understand that there will be some refinements. We are not going to be held apart or separate. We're going to be just like every other major site plan approval that will go through the city for approval, so we know there will be other refinements that will come. So if there's anything that I can express here today is that there were many other opportunities, or there will be many other opportunities to comment on design and other things as we move through the site plan process, but today is our first best foot forward. So we often are asked as a team, why Lake Worth Beach? And as we were trying to look for a home, we were trying to find a place where we had alignment. One of the things that Arthur told the team very early on is he wanted to be someplace that understood who he was and understood what the collection was and how special it was to he and his family. And so that's kind of why we started with, come and see who we are, and do you like us? If you're into us, we're into you. And that's kind of how we started. But we understood that we were into you mainly because of the issue of alignment. We took a look at all of the plans before even reaching out. We came to understand your comprehensive plan, your CRA plans, their arts and cultural master plans, all of the land use plans that you have for the downtown before we even reached out. And what we felt was just this synergy. And I think that getting to where we were today and having an ability to reach all of the goals in which were previously shown on the slides as a partnership team is a hard thing to do, especially when you must also have something that's financially feasible. But we are here today to say that we have accomplished that, and that's what we hope to present. With that, I'm going to turn it over to our design team and Ms. Anna Amari to go through the site plan concept.
Giving us this opportunity to speak with you about the design proposal. We met. Is that better? Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity to review the design proposal with you again. We met with you in April and listened to your input on our preliminary sketches and did our best to incorporate as much as we could from your very fruitful feedback. And I hope you'll see that in today's presentation. A lot of the content today you probably have heard if you were in previous presentations, but we will go over it again so everyone is clear on the location, the context. This is about a 1.7 acre site located east of the Dixie Highway. It is bound by the frontage on Lake Avenue to the north, South M Street to the east, L Street to the west, and South First Avenue to the south. The north existing development to the north is more commercial by nature, larger scale, and to the south more residential, smaller in scale. Through the site runs an existing alleyway that dissects the site from the east-west. The site is located in two distinct historic districts: the downtown historic district, Old Town Historic District, and the Southeast Lucerne Historic District, characterized by smaller residential coastal cottages. The design proposal is inspired by the history of the architecture in the area, such as Spanish colonial, medieval revival, as well as Art Deco. Our intent is to be appropriate to the historic district preservation guidelines, as well as the history of the area in general. The driving principles for the concept for this project are three. One, an urban connectivity to the cultural art district of Lake Worth Beach. Two, reinforcing and celebrating the arts, and doing so in an architectural context that is appropriate to the unique history of Lake Worth Beach. The master plan concept to reinforce connectivity and community is doing so by positioning the museum to the north with an architectural emphasis of placement on Lake Avenue, engaging that building to the south with the existing alleyway, activating that alleyway into what we're calling an art walk, and doing so in such a way that connects this development in the east-west access to Lake Worth Beach and the cultural art district that is there. To the south of that alleyway is the residential development that we'll speak about more in the upcoming slides. Some referential imagery of patterns and geometries that you'll see in some of the architectural fenestration for both buildings. This is a mobility plan which indicates the context of this building within the existing infrastructure in place, such as the zone for the shuttle, buses, the tram, and 5, 10, and 15-minute walking radius from the building to all of these benefits, including, of course, the main commercial avenue of Lake Avenue. This is a site plan that is superimposed on an aerial view. And this drawing has a lot of information that is a good introduction to the scope of the project. You'll see on the upper right of this image is the museum building on Lake Avenue and South M Street to the east. To the south of it is the residential development, and between the two is the existing alley, which we are calling the Art Walk. The museum building has parking on the proposed K Street parking to the west. The residential building houses parking in the cellar under the building, as well as street parking. The Art Walk is extended westward towards the proposed K Street parking garage, which is the orange building that you see to the left. There are 4 existing contributing buildings on the site that will be relocated, 3 of which will be located to where you see on this image on the bottom left, South First Avenue, and one of them will be relocated to southwest of here on J Street. Parking is ample and sufficient for the visitors, tenants, as well as the service providers for the development. And we've also indicated aligning South L Street, the affordable artist lofts, the artist lofts that are along L Street from the sort of the blue corner there going southward. This is a 3-dimensional axonometric highlighting those components. The residential developments to the right of this image, and you can see just the blocking. The parking garage is not designed, so we're just indicating it as a massing block right now to identify its location, and as well as the 3 contributing buildings on South First Avenue there, just south of that parking garage. And you can see to the north is a little bit hidden in this perspective, but the Art Walk that extends in the east-west direction from the residential museum building to the proposed parking garage location. This is a section going through the museum to the right in blue, and the residential, which is primarily in orange-yellow to the left, and white beyond. The massing concept was to start low from the south, where density is lower at 2 levels, and going up to 5 levels to the north, where the buildings are greater, facing the museum building at that Art Walk. The museum is 4 levels. The residential, as mentioned, it starts at 2, goes up to 5. And both buildings have a higher first floor to accommodate the retail and cafe in the museum, as well as the artist lofts and amenity space in the residential building. This is a drone image taken. To the left is the existing site as it is today, and to the right is a illustration of the axonometric, primarily of the residential, just as a reference for the introduction. This is, of course, an aerial view, so we're seeing mostly roofscape. You'll be seeing the residential renderings in the preceding slides, but this is showing the start of 2, 3, going up to 5 levels. And how the building meets the ground with a little bit of landscaping that you'll see more in the renderings as we proceed. We're going to take a few slides to talk a little bit about the Art Walk in the context of the site plan. As mentioned, the museum is to the north. The museum is activating Lake Avenue with a cafe and retail space in that location. And to the south of it is the Art Walk that extends east-west, connecting to the greater neighborhood. All frontages of the development will have new shaded trees to emphasize and support more walkability. As mentioned, part of the success of the urban making and landscaping of an art walk is to be intentional about the programmed area at the ground level. So you can see here, this is a zoomed-in site plan of the art walk, and just south of it, you'll see the outline of the residential building. We're proposing the community art space to be in the residential, to be in synergy with that museum directly north of it, reinforcing the activation of the art walk. And at ground level in residential, we also have amenity space, lobby, to further activate that ground level facade. The Art Walk will remain an active alley as well as loading. So we are incorporating that in the design. The primary gestures are texture, color of the paving, landscaping along the pathway, along with light poles that are in line with the Lake Worth Beach Cultural District light poles, all of which promote a sense of place and a pedestrian-friendly environment, especially with the activated ground level program of both buildings. This is a three-dimensional view of the Art Walk. The museum is to the right and the residential is to the left. Both buildings are muted for this illustration solely for the purpose of emphasizing the nature of and scale and landscaping of the Art Walk looking in the western direction from South M Street. We're going to look a little more closely at each of the buildings. This is the first floor plan of the museum. You can see to the north in the green shade, that is the cafe retail area in the museum. The entry is the yellow, which is at the intersection of Lake Avenue and South M Street. On axis, with that entry, is a feature stair that wraps an artifact from the WMODA collection. It also helps engage the streetscape to see that value of the artifacts, hopefully from Lake Avenue. These are floor plans 1, 2, 3, and 4 of the building, just to indicate the planned program spaces. Going up the stack, we have an auditorium. There's various collections, of course, ceramics, glass, a chandelier area with visible storage. There is a setback on the third floor with a terrace that wraps and an overlook to the Art Walk to the south. A section through the building showing, mostly diagrammatic at this point, but showing the feature stair in the center of the building, and then another double height space that also has the viewpoint to the Art Walk. This is a rendering view of the museum taken from the intersection of Lake Avenue and really the north portion of Lake Avenue and South M Street. You can see the ground level of the museum is glass to further activate the street with the cafe and retail. The entry is at the corner, and the branding and signage of the museum is on a horizontal plane that projects over the sidewalk. Above that is the primary exhibit space that you can see above that level, which is behind a custom facade that is dynamic and representative of the artifacts that it houses as an iconic museum on the main street. The composition of the facade, as mentioned, is glass at the ground level to activate the program. And the middle level is a custom cast material that evokes movement, texture, and shadow. It frames an opening that will have either one or multiple artifacts from the collection. The upper two levels are recessed at the terrace with vertical glass, and horizontal fins that hover over the recessed terrace. And this is just another view of that primary facade from the pedestrian level angle from across the street. This is a view from the south of the building overlooking the Art Walk. Equally as dynamic, speaking to the Art Walk to emphasize a sense of place and ensure that it is an activated place that people will know that they've arrived at not an alley, but a place between the museum and the residential building. As mentioned, the Art Walk will remain an active alley and will have zoning for the museum. So you can see in the foreground screened a screened area for the loading dock as well as mural that surrounds that to further engage with the art walk. It's okay. And this is a view, again, from the eastern portion, looking at the residential building to the right, the museum building to the right, with framed openings of the exhibits, on looking over to the art walk, and the residential building to the left. Again, this is looking eastern, in the eastern direction towards the art walk. And this is an axonometric view showing the building as it meets the ground with the existing single-lane roads, identifying also the added trees and the opportunities for drop-off and busing. We're pivoting now to the residential building. It starts at the cellar level, which will house 117 cars. The entry is off of South M Street to the right with a ramp going down. This is a ground level plan that identifies the northern portion of it in blue, which houses the community art space, lobby, amenity space, and the yellow and orange are the residential units. The units lining South L Street are the artist lofts, and within the courtyard is the private pool courtyard lined with residential on the inner face of the building. Typical layouts for levels 2 and 3, and we can go up to 4 and 5. Primarily 50% one bedroom, 50% two bedroom units. And as mentioned before, the project is a combination of amenity space, underground space, residential space, all encompassing 110 units, 8 of which are artist lofts, roughly 50% one, 50% two bedroom units. Looking at the elevation of the building, we're starting with the elevation that is the highest, 5 level stories facing the art walk to the north. The architectural language is looking to engage with the unique ground level program of the building, which is, as mentioned, the art walk, the artist lofts, the community art space. Excuse me. The ground level has a double height expression throughout the base with arches on the east-west portion. It's interrupted in the middle in geometry and materiality. We looked at the rhythms, layers, and patterns with a careful attention to balance, proportion, and detail that we're carrying throughout all facades of the building. And you'll see the three-dimensional views will further reinforce those elements for depth and shadow and that engagement. This is the elevation of the facade along South L Street. You can see stepping from 2 going up to 5 stories with the same architectural language. And this is a elevation view of the entrance down to the garage as well as the loading and the east lobby entry. And the south view allows for a glimpse of the facade of the courtyard looking over the pool. The three-dimensional views articulate a little bit more of the texture and layering and shadow of the residential development. You can see the arches that line the art walk moving westward. The corner is rounded at the ground level, as well as the projecting balconies and sun shading is rounded at the corners as well. The material is primarily stucco with variation in texture and tone, as well as aluminum railings, projected sun shading with metal accents and highlights throughout the facade. This is a view at the intersection of South L Street and the Art Walk. The horizontality of the projected balconies and sun shading, coupled with the verticality of the arches that march along the base of the building, recessed for entry at the northern point, as well as for a colonnade of balconies at the second floor residential. And this is a three-dimensional looking from the south to the north. You can see the building is stepping upward with the same language articulated throughout. And the building meets the ground with parklets, which are landscaped enclosures that have a dual purpose, one for the privacy of the artist lofts, as well as to enhance the sidewalk and further engage the pedestrian experience. An axonometric of the residential, also again to illustrate how it integrates with the existing infrastructure in the roadway, as well as the existing parking that will remain to the north, and the ample corner colonnade for the entry points into the lobby and amenity at the northwest corner of the building.
Thank you, Anna. Before we turn it over, actually, if I could, to Louise to talk a little bit about WMODA and its programming. I'm sorry, I'm trying to go back, but it's going forward. I wanted to just take a moment, if I could, to recognize Arthur Wiener and his family, just to say a few words now that you've seen the kind of work that has gone into this design over the last couple of months. If I could turn it over to you, Arthur, or to Ariana and Gabrielle.
Let me just say that I want to be a partner with the town. And again, the towns sought this museum. It is humbly world class. Humbly. I hate to brag, but it is something special, and you'll have the opportunity of sharing the collection. I want to leave a legacy. This country's been very good to my family. They came from the Holocaust, and the whole family was wiped out only because they were Jewish. And today is the first year anniversary of the massacre on October 7th, including some of my own family that were killed. And I thank those who are not Jewish for supporting Israel. In the most dire days, the Christian people and some Muslims actually went to Israel where the Jews were afraid to, and I appreciate it. So to leave a legacy, you have to have those who will support the institution after I'm gone, which I hope will be a long time from now. But you never know. It's in the hands of God. And I have two beautiful, smart children. Gabby, who's going to hopefully move to Florida from St. Louis. If you could find a job for a maxi-facial, or whatever Dr. Maxi-facial does. And she will be overlooking the project. My daughter, Ariana, has been intimately involved from the very beginning, and she will certainly be instrumental in the future, along with Gabriella. So I talk too much. Who's going to speak first?
Ariana Wiener. nice to see a lot of you and nice to meet new faces. First, I want to say thank you to the city and CRA for all of their hard work and support. I have to say that you in Lake Worth are very fortunate to have them. They work very hard for you and really have your best interests at heart. And it's been a pleasure working with all of you, so thank you. And also for everybody here, you know, it's been very stressful coming out and thinking about leaving, you know, with the weather, but walking into this room and looking at all of you, especially those of you with the WMODA signs and shirts, makes it all worth it. So thank you very much. And so, yeah, I've been down here a few times, and I look forward to it every trip that I make. I think that Lake Worth is an amazing town, and I think it really matches us as a family. I think it matches the eclecticness of the collection, of us as people, and I think this is a perfect match. And we are really, really, really excited. You know, a permanent home for the museum means everything to us, and being able to support that museum is also very important to us because we want it to continue for hundreds of years. So everything seems to be so far coming together really nicely, and we can't wait to get started and really become an institution in Lake Worth. And I'm very grateful for all of you for this opportunity and to be a part of it.
Hello, good evening. I'm Gabriella. It's really hard to follow my sister after that. I feel like she really summed it up beautifully. But regardless, thank you all so much for the opportunity and for being here today. United Management is a family company, and I am an employee of United Management and also Arthur Wiener's daughter. I'm not sure which one I take more pride in. But regardless, United Management is a family-run company. I am one of the 4 children that Arthur Wiener has working alongside him day to day, which is something.
With mommy.
Yes,
Don't forget
yes,
your
which
mother.
is something wonderful. And as my father had mentioned, I'm actually planning on moving back from St. Louis to Miami to be present and local, which is something we take a lot of pride in. And I think that is so important for me and so important for everyone else to know that there's going to be one of us here on the ground. And hopefully this project will go on for generations and generations, and my children will be a part of it, and we will keep the family business and the arts alive. So thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate that, just giving us a moment to share. I'm going to turn it over now to Louise Irvine, who's going to talk about WMODA Museum and its programs.
Thank you, Renee. Good evening, everybody. Can everybody hear? Yes, they can now. Thank you all for being here tonight and for the support. It was such a surprise to see all the WMODA T-shirts. Very, very flattering. I know many of you have had the opportunity to visit us in our temporary location in Hollywood and some previously in Dania Beach. But for those that haven't, I wanted to take a few words just to explain a little bit more about what WMODA is. We're a 501c3 museum founded in 2014 by Arthur Wiener and his family, and we mainly feature ceramics and glass. We like to think of ourselves as the fired arts, and we believe that glass is hot and ceramics are cool. And we try to make it so in our programs. We have collections of British art pottery and European porcelain from the 1800s to the present day. We also have wonderful collections of South African ceramics, which have helped to remotely lift up a community in Africa. And we have an amazing collection of American studio glass, mainly the work of Dale Chihuly. In our Dania Beach location, we were mainly attracting local residents, but we also drew on national and international visitors who enjoyed our collections, our unique collections of fired arts. And within a few years of being founded in 2014, we had been receiving accolades from TripAdvisor, the travel company, as one of the top attractions in Dania Beach. We also, last year in 2023, won the Museum Excellence Award from the Florida Association of Museums. We're very proud of that, and we hope that we can emulate that success coming here to this particular community and be part of Lake Worth Arts Community and the Lula Arts District. We love to work with students and people of all ages, particularly young kids. We like to take these young minds and hopefully influence them on the potential for clay and glass as artistic experiences. Clay and glass are some of the first materials ever used by humankind to create art, and we want to give young children, particularly underprivileged young children who might not otherwise be exposed to art, to give them hands-on experiences, to let them feel the clay, to let them understand the process of wheel throwing on a potter's wheel, to really get them involved in the whole creation of making art. And we do this with groups, with families, all sorts of kids of all ages, from youngsters up to the high school students, up to college students, and so on. We've done that with great success at WMODA. We also like to attract people of all age groups, and we like to have seniors and lifelong learners in our studios as well. And so we're jumping ahead a little bit.
Sorry.
Thanks. I just wanted to talk a little bit about some of the programming that we do for seniors in the community. We work very closely with artists in our community, and this is actually Chelsea Russo, who's recently worked with us on a public art project called Unity in the Community, where she's inviting people to make icons of unity. We have a wall display, an installation in the museum showing all the great work that has been done by the people who are participating in this program. None of them are experienced artists. They've all tried this for the first time. And it's been an amazing opportunity to, again, get a much wider community into the museum world. We're not a highbrow museum. We're not ivory tower. We believe very strongly in bringing everybody in and sharing all the wealth of our collections, but the experiences that can be gathered from that. We could have the next, please. Thank you. Thank you. Some of the local glass artists that we work with include Rob Stern. Rob Stern, some of you may have known from the Netflix reality show Blown Away. He was one of the stars in the third series. We have a very fine collection of Rob's work, and he also has a great local collection here in town because he does a lot of his work at the Benzaiten Arts Centre. So we are thrilled to be working with Rob for many years. He has exhibits at the museum. He actually has work in the museum shop. And we also work with another great artist associated with Benzaiten, who is Josh Freitas, who also shows his work through the museum shop. So again, we want to work with artists in the community, and it's not just glass artists. We work with ceramic artists. We also like to work with artists in other materials like textiles and photography and painting. And we're really looking forward to meeting all the artists here in Lake Worth Beach and seeing what we can do together in terms of programming and exhibitions and other events and artist demonstrations. The next slide, please. We've partnered on many levels with different organizations in the community. This is some of the music in the museum. We've had the great fortune to partner with the Venetian Art Society over the years and brought world-class musicians into the museum. Here, some of them performing for the benefit of our local community. We've also done very experimental art shows, merging music with glass art with some very talented individuals in the community. We are going to be having a marvellous event space in the new building, and we hope that we'll be able to create lots of opportunities there for events of all types. One of the types of events that we became particularly famous for in our original Dania Beach location was our British afternoon tea parties, which were much enjoyed by all of our local community and further afield. We actually worked with PBS South Florida to launch the Queen Victoria Masterpiece Show with one of our special tea parties. But we also have hosted wedding ceremonies, other kinds of parties, cocktail receptions, private viewings, and the event space in the new facility will afford us all of these opportunities as well. One of the great attractions of the museum is the wonderful Chihuly collection that we have at WMODA. Chihuly is the revolutionary artist who has transformed the way we think about glass art, and we are so thrilled that he is one of the major attractions at the museum and will become so at Lake Worth Beach. And I'm going to hand over now to Aaron Rimpley to tell us a little bit more about the exciting news about Dale Chihuly and Lake Worth Beach.
Hey, everybody. I'm grateful to be here, and it's very hard to follow Louise after she's been speaking. It's terrible. But let me see. Is anyone familiar with Dale Chihuly? Has anyone been to any of the exhibits or the botanical gardens? So his exhibitions have been seen by millions of visitors all over the world over the last 4 decades. He is actually probably the most famous living artist right now in the world. And it's a really incredible opportunity. He has agreed to create a permanent site-specific installation for the Lake Worth Beach Museum, which is really incredible because there's not very many permanent installations of his work in the world. His pieces are in over 200 permanent collections, museum collections around the world. So really incredible. I invite you also to look online. You can read. There's a lot of. You can go to the Google and go to a news search, and you can read numerous articles and different magazines about his works. Currently, the most recent installation is in Adelaide, Australia, at the Botanical Gardens that just is opening. If it hasn't now, it's very shortly going to be open. And also, you've probably seen his work, like it's in the Bellagio in Las Vegas on the ceiling. There's all kinds of his exhibitions that have been seen by so many people, and it's really interesting to see what his concepts will be for Lake Worth, because he takes the area, he looks at kind of like what the influences are here to create the installation. So we're really looking forward to see what their team is going to be able to come up with for everybody. So that's it. That's what I have.
Thank you, Aaron. We'll turn it over to Paul Lambert.
Well, good evening, everybody. My name is, again, Paul Lambert, as Renee just said. We completed an economic impact analysis. We completed an economic impact analysis of the project to better understand what are the economic benefits that are going to accrue to the community from the museum and the residential. There's 4 principal ways that economic development or economic impacts are generated from projects like this. First is short-term construction. During the construction period, all that activity in the city, in the town, are generate economic demand and jobs and expenditure. Secondly, is this long-term residential as well as staff at the museum plus the visitors to the museum generate expenditure throughout the community. Third, there's incremental ad valorem taxes that are created that go both to the city, but also to other taxing entities, the school board, to the county, to child services throughout the entire county. And finally, research has shown that for about a third of a mile radius, for very high-profile projects like this, there's benefits in terms of property values surrounding those developments. So there's an incremental benefit that occurs when you make investments like this immediately in the surrounding area. What our economic impact analysis didn't look at is because it's almost impossible to put numbers on at this point, is something that we refer to as the Bilbao effect. I don't know if many of you are familiar, but there's a museum in Bilbao, Spain, the Guggenheim Museum, that was developed about 27 years ago. that generated a tremendous, it was an old industrial city, Bilbao, but it generated a tremendous amount of activity around this very high-profile design museum to the point where the city is dramatically transformed in the past 25 years. Now, not every city, otherwise you can't just develop a museum and every city starts to realize what's the Bilbao effect, as we refer to it. But certainly we've even seen it close to home. St. Petersburg, Florida, for example, if you're familiar with it. The Dali Museum was the first museum in St. Petersburg. Generated then became the American Arts and Crafts Movement Museum. This museum is fairly recent, but it's getting some of the highest reviews of any museum in the United States. Really worth taking a look at. In addition to that, there was the redevelopment of the St. Petersburg Pier at the same time, with high amount of energy and parks and all sorts of facilities within the park as well. So those three components, those anchors, like you're about to start to see here, should this project move forward, became very critical to the further development of downtown St. Petersburg, which is one of the fastest growing downtowns and considered one of the most successful downtowns in the state of Florida. So this is not only in Spain or in Kuala Lumpur, but we have it close to home as well. So what we did measure are elements such as the construction impact. We estimate that there's going to be about 520 some odd jobs, plus or minus, that are going to get generated. That's both direct jobs, but also through expenditure through the economy, indirect and induced jobs over the construction period, with an average wage of about $53,000, or $56 million in total added benefit to the community. If you go to the next slide. Now, once the museum is operating, and you have what the estimate is about 50,000 annual visitors to the museum who will spend money locally. Between that and the residents within the 100 some odd units, we estimate that there's about $12 million per year in expenditure, largely within the core of downtown, within the core of the area immediately surrounding the museum and the residential, generating about 21 full-time jobs and $2.2 million in annual salary and wages. Plus, that translates to businesses in the community about $5.1 million in additional business. And finally, as the city manager noted and the CRA director, there's a substantial amount of opportunity because of or the benefits that accrue as a result of the garage being developed, being able to be utilized during the daytime, on the one hand, to service the museum and other components, and the evening time for restaurants and other venues downtown. Finally, the impact on surrounding properties. We estimate that within that 3rd-mile radius that I talked about, that the research shows where the greatest impact is, there's going to be another $6 million per annum in annual value increase. So it doesn't increase $6 million every year, but it'll increase by $6 million in the surrounding area, which creates an additional $40,000 that gets paid to the city and other taxing entities. So as you can see, there's a robust set of economic impacts that we expect and can measure that'll come from this, and could even get increased as a result of what I discussed in terms of Bilbao or in the case of a St. Petersburg. So.
Thank you, Paul. The other thing that it's important for us to share is the community benefit impacts associated with this project overall. I must communicate, and I think I have shared with every member here on the dais, that this project is very different than most of the other public-private partnerships for which the city and the CRA might have engaged in the past. In this particular project, firmly 30% of the expenditures are for things that are solely in the public realm. And by that I mean not something that is a benefit just to the residents that will be living at the WMODA apartment complex. These are items for which every single solitary resident of Lake Worth Beach would be able to walk through any day of the week. And by that we mean the museum. We mean the community workshop space for which we're dedicating to the public behind the museum, that will have an opportunity to program in partnership with the city, the CRA, and the Cultural Council, that will be available to our community. We're talking about the Arts Alley. We're talking about all of the things in which really don't only benefit the WMODA residents, but benefit this entire city. The economic development impacts that Paul just talked about, That is benefiting the entire city and in certain respects the region. And also parking. I won't belabor the point, but we stepped in to work with the city team to be part of the solution as opposed to adding to the existing problem. When it comes to art and culture access, every single solitary long-term plan that we reviewed for the city and the CRA talked about expanding access to arts and culture for the community. This project does that. It does that not just by walking in and buying a ticket to the museum. If you don't or can't do that, you will always be able to come to the community art space or the arts alley and enjoy that experience. Also, there's immeasurable benefits that we haven't even begun to talk about with respect to tourism. And the Chihuly effect that we've been talking about here, that people come from near and far to be able to see his permanent exhibits, to be able to study, to be able to understand this collection. And we understand from the Chihuly team that we've got the largest concentration of Chihuly owners or collectors here in Palm Beach County. So I think we're not only going to see people come from other places, but we'll see people coming from right here in Palm Beach County, spending those funds right in the downtown, and I think that's fantastic. It's also fantastic for some of the other things that the city and the CRA have invested in, like the Gulfstream and other downtown businesses. Very early in this process, we talked about the fact that we were unsure about affordable housing because we didn't think we'd be able to accomplish throwing off profit to be able to support the museum ongoing and still do affordable housing. But through the partnership and the ingenuity of the discussions that we've had with the city and the CRA, we're now able to offer 8 affordable artist loft units at 120% of AMI or less. So not only would we be able to have affordable housing for those artists, but they'll also be able to have a workspace that works to activate the development along the L Street corridor and also gives them much needed workspace. And as we've talked about here over and over, we are working with the city and the CRA to relocate and preserve the 4 historic structures that exist.
I'm back to the slides nobody can read. Okay, my apologies. I'm going to go through the contributions by each of the partners, starting out with WMODA. Let me see if I can see better. Okay. This project was going to be a $60+ million mixed-use, tax-paying development in the downtown area. They are going to build a 33,000 square foot quality museum that is dedicated to the arts. They are also going to design and create a 2-block arts alley worth over $1.5 million. And they will maintain a part of that alleyway between L&M in perpetuity. Because the city and some of the community did not want to look at a garage on this particular site, they are creating a subterranean garage to lower the overall height of the project. And the expected cost for this is about $8 million. They are set to create 8 affordable live-work units that we'll talk about a little later, and 102 units in the downtown to support local businesses and to create local jobs. They are helping to relocate the 4 historic structures the commission asked to be moved to other lots in the downtown, and the value of that is approximately $500,000. They are contributing all of their design services for the alleyways and for the historic home site. And they are constructing and maintaining a community art space that Renee talked about earlier, worth at least $600,000. And finally, creating an arts destination along with the Playhouse, Benziken Cultural Council, and other small businesses in the downtown. So what is the CRA's contribution? Well, our contribution would be the land at L&M. When we purchased the properties there, the value at that time was $3.3 million. We are also being asked to donate up to $2 million in infrastructure incentives to be paid over 4 years, and also another $1.4 million to buy down the affordable housing units. It's important to know that both the land and the infrastructure incentive will be paid back to the CRA in less than 10 years in tax increment. And the $1.4 million for affordable housing does not come out of our tax increment, but actually comes out of federal grant funds that the CRA has applied and received. The city contribution is the reuse of the former building at 17 South M for leisure services, as well as the garage there. They will be moved over to K Street. The city is offering or could be offering, a water infrastructure contribution valued at somewhere between $200,000 and $250,000. The electric utility could be contributing up to $650,000 to underground all the utilities, not just around WMODA and the residential portion, but on all 3 blocks, and undergrounding the electric utility in the alleyways. Also adding decorative light poles along the alleyways to make them safe for walking. And the CRA is actually paying the city $340,000 for 501 Lake Avenue. And that $340,000, the city has talked about potentially using it to maintain or pay for part of the Arts Alley from L through K. So if you look at the bottom line of all 3 of these, you have WMODA contribution estimated at $63 million. CRA contribution, approximately $6.7 million, and the city contribution to the Cultural Arts Campus at $1.2 million. The next slide, again, apologies for not being able to see it. This just shows you our tax increment projection over the next 10 years, showing that the museum and the residential portion of this particular project will be paying taxes. And we estimate that at a very conservative rate of 6% increase every year, value increase, that the WMODA and United will be paying back the initial investment to the CRA of $5.3 million in less than 10 years. Our annual increase average for the last 10 years is actually 10.2. So there's a good probability that the project will pay for itself and pay back all the CRA investment in it in probably about 8 years. And now I'm going to turn it over to Stephen Beal, who works with us, and he's going to tell us a little bit about the buy-down program, which allows for us to offer 8 of these units at either 120% or 80% of area median income.
Thanks, Joe. The buy-down program was a program created by Joan, myself, and Mona a few years ago that does just as Joan mentioned. It allows one to bring affordable units online that would otherwise have been market rate units. About 3 years ago, I created a calculator that determines the appropriate buy-down dollar amount. And it allows you to do a comprehensive analysis of the numbers of a particular project. What you typically see in the industry is a set-aside of about 5 to 10% affordability of a market rate development, 5 to 10% of those units being set aside as affordable for a predetermined affordability period. The buy-down calculator allows one to scrub the development budget, operated pro forma, etc., and it also allows one to calculate the tax increment financing associated with the development. Oftentimes as well, you may see a premium of 5 to 10% to additionally incentivize a developer to bring on more affordable units. In this case, the commitment by the CRA is $1.4 million. If you move to the next slide, please. We ran north of 16 different scenarios in this buy-down program. As mentioned earlier by Renee, Walter, and Joan, there are 8 affordable live-work units with the potential of having an additional 8 units being affordable, as mentioned by Joan. Here I'm showing you 5 different scenarios, the average of which round to about 1.4 million. Even the 16 scenarios that we ran round to about 1.4 million. As of now, the determination was to set aside 5 of the units at 80% of AMI, 3 one-bedroom units and 2 two-bedroom units, and set aside 3 two-bedroom units at 120% of AMI. And we are limited, the CRA is limited to the $1.4 million commitment based on other commitments that they have associated with this project. It was my responsibility to look through the lens of the CRA, do a comprehensive analysis, and determine whether or not the CRA was over-incentivizing this project. I'm here to tell you they are not. This is a good deal for the CRA.
Thank you. My name is Brent Whitfield. I'm with Chinmore & Associates. I'm a consultant to the city, and I've also, for those of you that may not know me, I'm lived here in the city of Lake Worth since 2003, and even had the pleasure of being on the CRA and a past neighborhood president for College Park for a few years. But I'm here really to talk about something that was referenced earlier by Jamie, Joan, William. You've kind of heard talked about a few times, which is a parking study. So actually, when I was on the CRA was when the first version of this parking study was in motion. And I thought it would be good to kind of share with everyone some of the information that was in the 2018 parking study and some of the other things that have been coming up in the update to the study that Jamie mentioned in some of his opening remarks. And really, one of the things I wanted to note in this, with regard to this parking study, is that 2018 and even before that, the city's been trying to figure out how do we set ourselves up with our parking downtown to really serve the needs of our downtown, to serve the needs of our residents, to prevent that spillover parking in the neighborhoods. And so this is something that's been going on for a while, and I wanted to share these things. So in 2018, the downtown parking study, looking at the downtown core, showed an inventory of 462 on-street parking spots and 205 off-street parking spots. And those are the surface lots that you see like on K Street behind Irish Brigade and the other developments or blocks around town. And what they did in this 2018 study was they performed in-person surveys just to see how many spots were full at different times of the week and weekend. And what they found was that in that Saturday night period, the parking occupancy was completely full, and that they recommended at that time in 2018 the addition of 150 more downtown spots to help that kind of peak period. Now, if we go to the next slide, you can see when they kind of revisited the study in 2024, they used license plate scanner data. So that they're looking at parking spots kind of at various times a day for kind of the whole run there, January through May, and they showed in that 12 to 6 p.m. period an 80 to 85% occupancy. And they show in the downtown core in the weekend period again that they're getting up to 100% capacity in the afternoon and early evenings on the weekends. And one of the things that I think is important to think about, and I like I said, I've been a resident here for over 20 years. I can't remember a time when the downtown, all of the kind of floor plates, all of the downtown venues were full. And the 2024 study that very recently updated, actually was just looking at it over the weekend, they showed that if the building occupancies were at 95%, so what I think of as the old Caleros or the Cottage on Lucerne, if those spots are full to 95%, as far as leased out and using as restaurants, then the parking adequacy is minus 241 spots. And I think that kind of aligns with what my experience is, that most of the time you go downtown, you can find a parking spot unless you're there at that peak period during the weekend. But if you think about it, this is also a downtown that hasn't realized its full potential. We haven't been able to fill every one of those spaces. So it's important to the city that's been looking forward for a while now of identifying what kind of parking capacity we need to be able to manage the parking as the downtown realizes its full potential. So if we go to the next slide, kind of summarizing these downtown parking studies, the recommendations from both the 2018 and the latest update was to create a paid parking program, really managing those parking zones so that you can make sure that the curbside parking right in front of Irish Brigade is managed for folks that are actively using these spots right in downtown. You can arrange things so that employee parking and resident parking and everything is all in sensible locations. You can encourage alternative modes of transit. And something that was, pointed out, we're missing 241 spots according to that recent update of the study. How do we create new spots? The answer in the parking study is we need to look at a parking garage, which even back in 2018, before this opportunity with WMODA came, K Street was an option that was highly recommended for a parking garage. So if you look at implementing the parking garage and being able to pay for the implementation of that parking garage with the paid parking program, you're able to kind of meet all those objectives and create the additional parking that's needed in a way that, as you'll hear in a moment from city staff, really leverages what the opportunity for this museum and the wonderful opportunities for our downtown that this development holds, really leveraging this as the moment where we could make the move that the city's been planning for some time. So I ran through my closing points already, so just what I said is what's written on this slide. The idea is that, as I mentioned, the city's been working on this parking study for a while, and this kind of creates the opportunity. Why it's relevant to tonight's discussion is when everything came on the table, as Joan mentioned earlier, there's always been a desire for opportunities for the arts, opportunities for economic development. There's also been a desire to solve the long-term parking program for Lake Worth, and seeing this as that opportunity is what the city's looking towards. So I'm turning it over to Yannick, I believe, to discuss how that financing of the garage would work.
Yes. Good evening. My name is Yannick Ganahayu with the city's finance department. I will quickly go over on how we plan on financing the city garage, which is a key component of the remote development. We'll start with the down payment, which is due by 2026 of $5 million. WMODA will provide financial support for $1 million. Our CRA will fund it from TIF funds in the total amount of $1.5 million. $500,000 will be funded in this fiscal year 25, and the remaining $1 million will come in fiscal year 2026. The city will fund the down payment using penny sales tax. We had some significant amount of savings, so we are allowed to use to allocate those funds towards this parking garage. The remaining balance of 3.5 will be financed through WMODA. They have been gracious enough to provide financing with only 4% interest for over 5 years, which is below market rates. And 2.5 will be funded from CRA, again using TIF fund over the 5 years. And the remaining balance, which is over $1 million, will be funded by the city, again using penny sales tax. So in total, 47% of the cost will be funded by CRA, 41% by the city, and WMODA will fund the remaining 12%. Now, it's important to note that WMODA will hold the note for the CRA not to exceed 5 years, and at that point, that's when the ownership will be transferred from CRA to the city. And the city will see considerable savings, which I'll go over for the next two slides, by not having to secure a 20-year bond. So on this slide, you see the comparison. If we were to issue a 20-year bond this versus financing from WMODA, the city will be on the hook of paying an annual debt service of $300,000 for the next 20 years, all the way through fiscal year 2046, versus completing the financing in fiscal year 30, where we will have full ownership of the parking garage. Go to the next slide. So on this next slide, so we have a total cost, including the capital and the debt service, if we were to go with the revenue bond, which will cost us approximately about $11.1 million versus $8.8 million from WMODA financing. So in total, we will be saving approximately $2.3 million in interest expense. So this is a good opportunity to go with the WMODA financing for the parking garage. Thank you.
Hi, it's William again. I'm going to go over really quickly the contributing structure plan. It was already alluded to by several of us, the preservation of those buildings that are left. There's a quadruplex, a single-family house, a single-family home that was converted to commercial office use by Dale Construction, and the associated garage in the back will all be preserved. Those buildings were a bone of contention for I don't know how many years, and this is an avenue that they get put back to useful reuse, adaptive reuse. In the little slide that you can see above you, the little orange buildings, that's the one farthest to the right is the 17 South M residential/commercial structure, a little garage building next door, and then the quadruplex next to it. And then a small cottage will go down to South J Street. As Joan mentioned earlier, the quadruplex and the smaller house will all be affordable housing. The little house will go to a site where there's actually an opportunity to build a few more affordable units in association with it. And then 17 South M, we're going to put together a program to house leisure services, more than likely the parking division. We will be bringing forward to the commission at some point probably a hyphen structure. What I mean by that is connecting the garage to the 17 South M larger building to serve as a way to access that building more conveniently, because right now it is a bit challenged when it comes to ADA compliance and being open to the public. They also serve an important role to transition the parking garage structure into the context of the local historic district. In conceptual terms, the parking garage will be 4 levels to the north and transition down to 3 levels to the south, and then to these 3 buildings right next to it. So it'll transition down, and most of the historic district to the south is in the 2-story family. And so not only is the preservation of the buildings very important, the transition of a more utilitarian structure down to the residential nature of what is south of First Avenue South is really important. So we are chipping away at a number of the historic preservation goals by having these structures relocated to this location. It also helps strengthen the overall character and integrity of the historic district in this location. It is a bit weak, as we have lost quite a number of buildings to age or removal, or they've been deteriorated, or they just was a blank space to begin with. And so this is a successful marriage of a number of historic preservation goals and objectives that are within our plan and within our comprehensive plan and strategic plan to build the overall integrity and character of the historic district, while also serving the needs of the city and providing affordable housing. So it appears to be a win-win on a multitude of levels in having these buildings located here. So next slide. Now, the complicated part that I will take credit for having created in 2013 with the LDRs. This will be a complicated entitlement process. How it is starting out is an urban mixed-use plan development that allows us to collectively put together under one entitlement umbrella several parcels that are owned by several different entities. The entities that are involved are the CRA, the city, the Cultural Council, and WMODA. The approval process for such a plan development does take a number of steps, and a number of them do include opportunities for the public to participate. Once a completed application for the whole project comes into our office, it will go before the site plan review team, which involves representatives of all city departments, including Palm Beach Sheriff's Office and Palm Beach County Fire Rescue, to review the project and provide comment back so that everybody is happy with it in terms of land development codes, building codes, fire code, SEPTED, which is an acronym for safety and lighting, before it goes to a public hearing process. Once the completed application is submitted to us, the developer is also required to have a required neighborhood meeting, which is open to the public, and the public can comment, where the interested parties will be invited, including the neighborhood associations and those individuals that own property within 400 feet of the site. Other people are also welcome to come. It is open to the public. And there we can talk about concerns those individuals may have, how might the developer may address them, what is coming forward, because as Ms. Miller mentioned earlier, there is likely going to be some tweaking and some evolution of the architecture as it goes through this process. After those two steps take place, there will be at least one public hearing before the Historic Resource Preservation Board. They are responsible for reviewing and approving the certificates of appropriateness. In this application, there will be one for new construction, one for exterior alteration. They will also be making recommendations on a major site plan, a conditional land use, a mixed-use urban plan development, a transfer development right bonus, a sustainable bonus incentive, as well as an affordable housing program requirement. And the last part is a sustainable performance standard that our code requires for new projects that are over 7,500 square feet. Once those recommendations are recorded, then it will go to the City Commission for two public hearings, a first reading and a second reading. Both opportunities will be for the public to speak to the Commission as they deliberate on the application. And then once the Commission makes the decisions, if they were to approve it, then it'll be ready for WMODA and United to move forward with their architects and team to create permitting documents that can be submitted to our office as well to be reviewed so that a permit can be issued for the construction of the project. Next slide. So I wanted to go real quickly to what components of our code that they will have to comply with. As you're aware, we have a land development regulations, which is effectively our zoning code, and there's several different parts of it that they will have to comply with. We have the site building and design performance standards, which essentially requires this project to meet the basic minimum requirement criteria for either LEED certification or Green Globe certification. And this is dealing with carbon neutrality, greenhouse gas emissions, recycled materials, those sort of aspects of a project. They must also comply with our comprehensive plan, which is triggered by the inclusion of a sustainable bonus requirement, transfer development rights, and also our affordable housing program. We also measure all projects next to the city's adopted strategic plan, the major thoroughfare design guidelines, which come into effect because the project is on not only Lake Avenue, but also on M and L streets, the historic preservation design guidelines, and also there are specific criteria in the land development regulations related to a major site plan, a conditional use, and plan development criteria. So all of that gives you an idea of how complicated and complex this project will be, and there will be multitude of opportunities for the public to come and speak and learn more about this project as it moves forward through that whole entire process. But there are at least 4 more, if not more, opportunities for the public to speak on this project once it becomes a formal entitlement application.
Thank you, William. I want to take a moment just to talk a little bit about the overall development deal structure. It's a non-traditional process in which we've engaged in to go through to see whether or not this public-private partnership is beneficial for the city, the CRA, and for WMODA. Ultimately, the average developer would not have put this much time into site plan review in detail, but it was necessary in order to communicate to the community and the CRA board and the city commission the value, the quality, and the intent of the development, because there are so many moving parts to figure out if it all fits and if it all makes sense from a fiscal perspective. The documents for which we're going to be speaking about most presently in the next 2 meetings with the CRA and with the city deal with some key elements. That's the transfer of property in order to enable the development on the L&M sites, the overall development program, the development requirements that we have to follow, WMODA's financial requirements, which we've talked about in previous slides, the city and the CRA's financial requirements, as well as certain long-term commitments that we make to each other in this partnership, because several areas of this development itself will outlive the documents for which I will speak about. There are 6 documents that will be required in order to accomplish this deal structure. There are 2 main documents that I think we like to call the master documents. That's the purchase and sale agreement, which will ultimately be between WMODA and the city of Lake Worth Beach. The CRA. And then the development agreement, which will be a tripart agreement between WMODA, the city, and the CRA. The development agreement itself is the document that talks about all of the elements of the overall project that we've been speaking about for the last hour and a half or more. But within that development agreement, there are specific activities that either statutorily or because of the length of the commitment that we make to each other as partners, it requires 4 offshoot agreements. That is the construction of the K Street garage, the contributing structure relocation agreement, a long-term parking agreement for K Street, as well as a long-term maintenance agreement that will govern who will take care of and how it will be taken care of the Arts Alley. Just for background, the Arts Alley will be something that we dedicate to the public in perpetuity, that we maintain on a day-to-day basis, the area within our site, and that's really the crux of that. So we're often asked, what is the critical path for development? That looks somewhat convoluted, but let me take an attempt to simplify. The critical path is really 5 main stages. We begin with our inspection period, and within that inspection period, which would start upon the execution of all of the documents that we're speaking about, the main 2 documents that we will be executing, the purchase and sale agreement and the development agreement, we then, as a partnership, begin to negotiate those additional 4 agreements that we talked about. If we move through that successfully, we then move to government approvals, and that is basically everything that William talked about previously. Once we move through government approvals, we move to financing and closing. That might sound also odd because in most development scenarios, a developer will own a property and then go through all of this. Because we're protecting the city's asset and the CRA's asset, we are not able to finance and to close on the property and own the property until we show the city that we have all of the requisite permits and that we have all of the requisite financing to be able to complete what we said we were going to complete. At that time, we close and we begin construction. So a very important point that was negotiated between all of us was the delivery time frames for each one of the major components of the development. As you can see on the chart, the first thing to be delivered to the community is the K Street parking garage. That's mainly because we understand that there will be a deficit in parking once we begin construction. So the K Street parking garage gets delivered first. We begin a whole year later. Then we deliver the museum. And then after that, we deliver the residential. That's the last component for which would be completed. And then we anticipate that completion will happen in the project in 2028. I'll turn it back over to the city to talk about next steps.
Thank you, Renee. As I mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, next steps as far as this process would be obviously not knowing what has occurred atmospherically since we've been in this room. As of right now, tomorrow night, CRA board meeting. at which point they would be discussing the purchase and sale agreement and making a decision. Next Tuesday, on October 15th, it would be a first hearing at the City Commission meeting, followed by the second hearing on October 29th. Next slide. Oh, that is it. Madam Mayor, I'll turn this back over to you. Obviously, this concludes the presentation.
Thank you very much. And I want to thank everybody involved that spoke tonight and that has been working on this project. I know that the city staff has been meeting virtually with the WMODA staff at least once a week for the past number of months. I also want to point out in terms of the concept of public input. This project, they have been open and available. I've spoken with Ms. Miller, and there's been ample opportunity for the public to have input. Number one, it's been at the CRA meetings every month for the past few months. They've been, giving updates, and there's the website that they can respond to, the Facebook page that they can respond to. So if somebody's interested in this is, you should be like up to speed by now. We've all heard this before, and we're looking at it. And if you're interested in this project, you've had really a lot of opportunities to do that. And then one thing I want to thank the WMODA folks for being as willing to be as open and hardworking with our staff as they have been, because that's a very unusual attitude for a developer to take, and we really do appreciate that. I'd like to open up. We're going to have whatever questions or comments that staff or the CRA would like to have, and I'm going to just take this with. Let's just start with the CRA because this has been your baby. Is there anyone from the CRA that has any questions or comments? Just raise your hand.
Well,
the chair recognizes you. Go ahead.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I have the statement about us having all the information up to this point and then being open about every aspect of this project. I don't believe is true. Last meeting that we had in September, we had no details in regards to the type of subsidies and assistance that the project would need. So, although they've been open about the way it's going to look and things they want to do, that's true, absolutely, up to now. But the specifics, right? What the things that really matter, the things that are expected from the CRA and from the city, from residents, we've only heard now. And I believe that tomorrow's meeting is a little too soon for us to be making these type of decisions, not allowing the community to really digest now what is a presentation about the entire project. Now, for me, specifically, my biggest issue is in regards to parking and this $11 million subsidy that, quite frankly, seems like it's more to make cars affordable than housing. The parking study was brought up. One of the things that pops to my mind is the hours of operation that the museum will operate during and our peak hours of use for parking. I don't know if you're going to be open until 9, 10, 11, 12 at night, right, where apparently is our peak hours where we reach about 100% capacity and a little bit above that. The city manager brought up issues about parking in general. I feel they're a little over-embellished, parking in front of people's houses. I've heard a lot of issues in the city from residents, and people parking in front of your house is one of the least things that I hear. I hear more about housing conditions, substandard housing conditions in our city, poverty in our city, things that the city could address through its code enforcement and real investment in assuring that the housing stock in our city is safe for people. I believe we have an issue of excess parking. Yesterday I was walking around, or Friday I was walking around what is maybe not considered downtown Lake Worth, but the west side of the tracks, and I went in and I popped into the Bohemian parking lot just to see what the type of investment or return on investment we have when it comes to parking. And quite frankly, I see there's little to none, and absolutely empty parking garage. And I believe if this museum, with all the subsidies, isn't worth walking to, then it's not worth the investment, honestly. Affordable housing, a few units. I have a lot of issues when it comes to the use of the word affordable. It's far from affordable. I think we're doing a disservice to the community using that terminology. I know it's official terminology, but I don't know if you recall some of the statistics that were brought up during the housing study. Lake Worth is different from the surrounding areas. A lot of working class people, not the same type of incomes that you see in the surrounding areas, and these things are not affordable. Artist lofts, the county has issues keeping track of workforce housing that they subsidize. There's a lot of abuse in the system. I don't believe that the city, WMODA, the CRA, anybody could really keep a track on these subsidized artist lofts, topic that is so subjective, to see who is worthy of getting these subsidized artist lofts. The historical homes, we've been holding on to those for such a long time. They came when the lots were aggregated in the very beginning. If they weren't saving then, they're not worth moving now. They're not worth saving now, and they are definitely not affordable. You put millions of dollars into something or hundreds of thousands of dollars into something so that some lucky few could somewhat afford it. That doesn't seem like a proper use of government and taxpayer funds. The total subsidy, honestly, I don't know if, years ago when the lots were aggregated, they were worth at the $3.3 million evaluation. I don't know what they're worth now, but I would guess they're worth more. So the subsidies are more than what we're being told they are now. Community impact, we'll have a nice alley to walk through, and we'll see people working on their craft. I have questions about the amount of people that we'll be able to attract. I don't see anything in the presentations, or I haven't heard anything of the amount of people that have visited, have gone out of their way to visit the museum in Hollywood, in Dana Beach. How can we make a decision based off that? We're just taking your word off of it, honestly. Just one last thing. I just want to double check that in front of you. Yeah. It's unfortunate that we invested in parking in the wrong place, obviously, right? But I asked people to really contemplate how much we could do with this money, a fraction of this money, to actually bring people to utilize the public spot parking that we have at the Bohemian that we've already invested in through other means such as the circuit. I think it's possible that we could even afford to make that last mile free for every single square inch of this city with a fraction of the dollars that we have here. People could park at the Bohemian, and they could have a shuttle ride over here. And again, I reiterate, I visited downtown Delray, downtown West Palm Beach. I'm sure much of you have, and I've done a lot of walking from the parking lot to any of my destinations. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And in the interest of time, it's about 8:00 now. Let's keep our we all have the opportunity to ask them questions as well, but let's keep ours 5 minutes apiece so that we have enough time for everybody, and not we have quite a few people here that may want to speak. So does anyone else, Madam Chair of the CRA, would you like to call on your folks?
Donna, do you have comments you'd like to make? Drew?
So obviously I have been involved with the L&M project for a long time now, and the thing that feels different about this is that we're bringing, it's not just a redevelopment, right? It's a cultural gift. It's an incredible transformative opportunity for Lake Avenue and the area. And as a community redevelopment agency, this is what we were going to do. We were going to do a redevelopment project. Just the straight solicitation and the projects we got last time around did not go well. That didn't go well. And so then you come, and therefore we did a charrette, which informed what might go well. And WMODA has very much steadfastly tried to implement that charrette, at the same time putting a museum in it, right? A museum for Lake Worth Beach in that. It's not just residence and commercial, right? So it's quite impressive. And the fact that we can then couple that with solving the parking study, it seems like an incredible opportunity that I would hate to revert back to just the RFP process. Now, it's money. It's real money. And so what I've been doing is looking at the finances of it. You must know that a redevelopment proposal will have finances too. It's not like that goes away. That is something we have to do as a CRA and as a city when we try to attract those kind of redevelopment opportunities. So I looked into the future to make sure that we still had revenue left over to do all the good things the CRA does into the future, starting at year 1, year 2, year 3. And I'm pleased to see that we do have funds, right? We can still continue the great work we've been doing with affordable housing and redevelopment and community arts and activities and so forth. So it is not going to handcuff us. That's the thing that was worrying me. Are we going to handcuff ourselves? Part of it is investing with sunk costs with the land, right? So it's about having funds in the future versus what you have now in your assets. And so I think it all ties together to bring the right kind of redevelopment opportunity that only will show up once in a lifetime. Because if this doesn't happen, we're going back to just commercial and residential, right? So I just think it's and I've asked Renee and her team all the questions, so I didn't have any. I just wanted to share my perspective because I've been engaged the entire time. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're now going to have comments from our vice chair. It's Leah, and she was stuck in traffic, so I'm glad that she made it. So.
I appreciate you apologizing on my behalf. I am sorry. I feel like all I'm doing is apologizing for being late these days, but in any event, I don't think the net benefit to the community can be overstated in this case. I think what you're proposing and what you're going to essentially gift to us is just, it exceeds any expectations I ever had, especially when I look at that lot and the way that lot has existed for the last, how many years, Joan? In any event, I'll move on. I want to say congratulations on the Chihuly partnership. I think the Chihuly effect can't be understated as well. When it was at Fairchild, I made, at least 15 trips down to Miami. I don't go to Miami lightly or easily, but it was just so cool. You kept going back. I want to applaud your community engagement. I think you've exceeded my expectations in terms of bringing in the community and being sensitive to what the community has wanted. Frankly, the enhancement and productive uses of the alley, it shows the best of us. It shows what our alleys could be. And I'll be calling all of you to see what more alleys we can enhance, because this is a phenomenal concept. Between the museum, the retail, the cafe, the classes, again, the net benefit to the community is huge, and it will allow each and every one of us to engage with the arts in a way that we have not necessarily had the opportunity to do here to date in the city of Lake Worth Beach. I'd like to applaud Louise. I've rarely had a tour by such a passionate guide, essentially. And I've toured some great museums, but you just shone in terms of what you did and the way you presented it and the questions that you were willing to answer. And I asked a lot of questions, but it was just amazing. I think the proposed development on the outside matches the proposed arts on the inside. I think the building's gorgeous from all angles. I like the fact that you are not putting us into a condo canyon. The stepping back of the structure really is going to make it continue to feel open and not imposing, as you find in some cities. The jobs, the economic impact to the downtown, again, are huge. I can't share some of the concerns in terms of the financing transparency. I think you've been transparent throughout this project. And the financing is complex, but if you dig into it, I think it makes very good sense for the community. So Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. This is an unruly crowd. Anyone else from the CRA?
Yes.
Donna?
I am.
Did you change your mind, Don? Well, I actually do have a question. And I can anticipate the answer, but just throwing it out there. With the apartments, I did see that there is a pool. Renee, I think you mentioned that the last time. Just wondering, I'm throwing it out there, who gets to use the pool? Because you're probably really well aware that we've been grappling with trying to redevelop our pool. So just wondering, like, in terms of the apartments, who will get to use that pool, and is it open to the public? Over.
No, the pool is not open to the public. That pool is an amenity for the apartment complex. I know we kind of talked that through a little bit, and our economic analysis shows that our rents are significantly decreased if we don't have the same amenities as all of our competitors that have just been built around us. So that is a pool, and that's an amenity that is for the residents.
It's not only that. She doesn't want me to speak.
No.
But it's not only that.
Talk, Arthur.
The insurability of the pool.
Are you sure?
Give him the mic.
We could not insure. What? Oh, I'm sorry. The insurance carrier won't insure the pool if it's open to the whole city. It's just the exposure involved is not acceptable to any insurance carrier.
No, I appreciate it. Thanks for letting me ask the question. And as I said, I anticipated the answer, but I just thought I'd put it out there because we've been grappling with having a pool here and financing for that.
If you want to use the pool, you're always entitled to sign a lease and be a tenant.
Thank you for that kind offer.
Or
looking for financing.
Or make friends with someone who lives there and get invited there as a guest. I try. Good idea. And just for your FYI, with the pool is coming up, and we have a request for qualifications coming up. There'll be a meeting in a couple of weeks. So, as you well know, everyone will. I share the concern about the pool.
I just figured I'd wrap it all into a nice package here.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Ms. Carla.
I'd like to thank WMODA for bringing this project to Lake Worth and thank their transparency in all the aspects from day one. They have been transparent in what they wanted to do and what they wanted to accomplish in the city of Lake Worth. I'd like to thank city staff who have done a yeoman's job in meeting with them and meeting with us and making sure that the city's interests were protected. But just as importantly, I want to thank the CRA. And the CRA does this with so many projects, but this has taken a determined amount of time that they've devoted to WMODA to bring it to us. But I also want to thank the citizens who showed up. You know, most of the time that we bring a project forward, we may have maybe 5 people in the room. Thank you very much for showing up and listening to the presentation. And please go back and share with your friends the things that were said so that they understand that this is a project that is good for the city. It's not just the CRA. It's not just WMODA. It's a good thing for the city, and it'll bring us international acclaim. But I want to talk a little bit about the financial commitments. We went through this slide rather quickly, and WMODA is providing $63 million. The CRA is providing $6.7 million. The city is providing $1.2 million. When someone brings you this much money to your city, you should say, let's make this project work. I'm not saying because they're giving us a boatload of money. I'm saying they're giving us a boatload of commitment. They have stood with us and they said, we will carry it through. For them to do the financing for the garage is going to save us a ton of money. Go back, look at the presentation, ask them for a written copy, share it with your friends to know exactly who the winners are in this project. We have to stop picking sides for what someone else believes. I want you to pick a side for the city of Lake Worth for what you believe, what the future that you want your city to look at. And I'm not talking to the people here because they've already formed their opinions. I'm talking to the people out here and the people at home who have a stake in this, whose children will benefit from this, whose children will live in this city. Those are the people that we need to protect. And those are the ideas that we need to be considering at this time and as we go through this process. There'll be many more times that you'll be able to get up and complain or say that you don't like something in the way that it's going. But one thing I can say about WMODA is they have listened. And that's all I ask you to do, is just listen and join with us in the project. Not make a decision tonight. And I don't think that the CRA is making a decision in haste tomorrow, because we have sat through this project every month since February, and some of us before then. So I think that the members of the CRA are ready to make a decision, and I certainly speak for myself, but I know that the people who sit with me and that they're fair and they do listen. So I look forward to our meeting tomorrow, and I invite the public to please show up because we do want your input, and tomorrow you will be able to speak. Thank you.
Okay, coming back to the commission now. I'm going to start with District 1. And remember, we're trying to keep it light so we can all go home and board up our windows or whatever we...
Okay.
Or eat dinner.
I will be brief. I'm not going to reiterate all the sincere gratitude that I have for this opportunity. Paris has the Louvre, and Lake Worth Beach deserves WMODA. For anybody who sits on the CRA board or the commission who has not taken the time to go to Dania Beach and to have a wonderful experience, I don't know anything about art. I was very clear about that in the beginning of this. I am not into art, but I was in awe of your collection, Mr. Wiener. And I have to tell you, I was even more excited at the opportunity that Lake Worth Beach fit every single thing on your wish list. That, to me, the first meeting that I sat through and I heard that, I said, Lake Worth Beach is the shining diamond in Palm Beach County, and we deserve this project. So I want to say thank you to the staff for all the time and energy and resources that we've put into this. Thank you to the CRA, and thank you, WMODA. A couple things that I would like to see. I would love to see Lake Worth Beach residents get a discount entry fee to the museum.
Yep.
I don't think that's a big ask. If you have proof of Lake Worth Beach resident, if that's on your license, I would love to see us, not bring your entire family from New York and think you're going to get a discount.
Just you.
But for the residents who live here to be able to, or a frequent flyer card, or however you want to say it, a VIP card, whatever you want to do.
Yes.
Okay, yes. I like yes.
Thank you.
I would like to see some art or some green space on the roof of the museum, because when I saw the overall view, knowing that people live across at the Lucerne, I thought, how cool would that be when John Faust and them bring out their drones during the street painting festival to see art or green space up there, right? So I think that would be something cool if you guys could add that in. I will go with finance, and Yannick and I are very close in relationship, so I will go over him with the proceeds of the parking and what is the cost for the oversight, because the Bohemian was a bad deal. I'm not going to lie. We hated paying for it, but we didn't make that deal. I'm probably one of the only people that park there probably every other day I park and charge there. It was a bad deal, but you know what? The Bohemians, eventually, it's going to get filled because we have new project coming. We have the Bazaar Cafe. We have the Vanilla Ice brewery thing that's happening. I forgot what it's called. So that's going to take care of itself. And I've been coming to every CRA meeting. I've been watching the growth. I've experienced the museum. I've talked to a lot of the people in the community, and 99.9% are super excited about this project. So I say thank you, thank you, and thank you.
And thank you. Okay, and again, we're keeping it to 5 minutes so that we can go home at some point. I'm timing it, Madam Chair. Oh, you are? Okay, thank you. Oh, well, I'll leave it to the clerk.
Thank you. I'd like to also...
Mr. McVoy, it's your turn.
Thank you. I figure District 2 comes after District 1, in the interest of time. I, too, would like to thank the family for their involvement, for their interest in Lake Worth. I'd like to thank Renee for shepherding all of the pieces of this, as I'm guessing she's done a lot of that, and for the design work, economic analysis, thank you all. I think of this as a little bit as, well, let me first say, there's clearly a very personal passion and interest in this project and wanting to bring it some.
Came during the hurricane. You can. And I'm not sure that I'm going to get out of here.
You may be stuck in paradise. Could go worse.
I'll buy more chahoots.
There you go. I'll get Dale on the phone. I think of this a little bit, and listening to a lot of residents. I've been a long-term commissioner here. I've always been involved in the city because of an interest in making sure that our character, as we develop, holds at least some of the content that it's had and that draws people to Lake Worth. Having watched South Florida develop, both through some historic research that I happen to do for other reasons and watching from living here for a quarter of a century, it is very easy to take the little bit of history that South Florida has and lose it. And you wind up with communities that don't have the character that Lake Worth does. And a lot of people will talk about, well, why do you live in Lake Worth? It's not all that shiny, or, there are other places that are a little more obviously attractive. And a lot of people say because of the character. And that's very hard to nail down what that character is. But if you ask the Palm Beach County Tourism Director or Executive Director, whatever, as we have done at meetings, is our historic downtown a key piece of our attractiveness as a city? And the answer was faster than you could blink, yes. And you say, well, but you've got St. Augustine. Do you really have much historic character in Lake Worth? Well, no. Nothing on the order of Williamsburg, St. Augustine, or some seriously historical places. But South Florida didn't exist in 1900 as a built community. There was nobody here. So history is relative in South Florida. Lake Worth was one of the first places settled. The little bit of a historic downtown we have is valuable in that context, in that South Florida context. And one of the concerns that a lot of people that I've talked to or have talked to me have raised is, well, we had a competitive process that came out of the master plan, that came out of community charrettes, and then we kind of dropped that because a very interesting proposal appeared, but it meant we dropped the competitive process. So we didn't really have the opportunity for a range of ideas to come in and figure out how to integrate with our historic community. How do you build new? It's not an easy thing to do, to add something to a place that's historic and doesn't have a real strong historic fabric. It's really only a block or two wide and a few blocks long. So there are concerns in the community to the community, and I'm just relaying it to you so you have the information. There are people definitely who feel rushed. I understand that this has been a very integrated process, a lot of interaction with staff, but there are definitely noticeable parts of the community that do not feel like they're fully comfortable with this transplant. Some of it relates to parking. There are a lot of varied views. You heard some of them earlier on parking. One of the things that the planner said to us, a parking garage should always be your last choice. We have a parking study that's pending, hasn't come to us yet. In the charrette that happened earlier with WMODA, parking really was set aside. It is now a pretty big part of the financing from the city side, and there's a lack of clarity on where that financing is going to come from. It was mentioned property values will likely go up with a project like this. I think that's a pretty good hunch. In our community, most of us are not concerned about raising property values. They've gone up crazy already and created real affordability issues, and we already have real affordability for businesses downtown. If property values go up, rents will go up, commercial rents, business rents. So you could argue, well, are we in fact going to depopulate some of the downtown where we already have a concern? I don't know. It's something to walk through. I think the things that I would like to ask, and one other one that's been raised is the affordability. If you looked at the 80 to 120% of AMI, that's income levels of 83 to 125,000. That is not your typical artist sort of range. So the biggest concern, no, I'd like a little bit more time, please.
It's 5 minutes. Audience, please don't.
If I
we
might
do have a 5
finish.
minute limit.
I am on the...
What? That was 5 minutes. Thank you very much.
My turn.
Okay, no.
One small piece, please.
We have a 5 minute limit if we...
Okay. The thing that I would ask
we're
you
now,
to do...
Mr. McFoy, now we're on District 3. Mr. McFoy, now we're on District 3. We all have to...
So, hi everyone, Mimi May, District 3. I wish I was as eloquent of a speaker as the people over in the CRA. I'm not. I teach math, and I'm pretty blunt. So that's what you're going to get when you talk to me. First of all, I wanted to thank Louise, because when we went down to the museum, I can appreciate art, but it's not like I probably would have sought it out. But I am so grateful that I did, because the collection is amazing, and when you walk around a museum with somebody telling you the stories and bringing all of the art to life, as Louise did, it was incredible. So I'm really grateful that I took that opportunity, and for those of us that didn't, I'm hoping that they do before we make a final decision, because you really need to see this. I do want to piggyback from what Mr. McVoy just said about Lake Worth's character, because I think the opposite. I think you're enhancing Lake Worth's character. I love the design. I love the arches. I like the Art Deco. I love the setbacks. I like the tall green trees. I mean, really all of the things that I heard at the charrette, which I attended, you put into place. I mean, except for the pool on the roof. I mean, really everything that I heard is in there. I think that this is where the bluntness comes out. If you're opposed to this project, you're going to be opposed to any project, because right now we have the land and we have, it's a museum, guys. We are the art capital of Palm Beach County, and we're just tiny and getting started. We've got Benzighton, we've got the Cultural Council, we've got the Playhouse, and now we're going to have WMODA. I mean, if I couldn't have designed a better way to put us on the map than with the arts. There will be, I think it was Drew who said, if we don't do this project with the museum and the apartments, somebody's going to come in and build some ugly monstrosity, and we're going to have no say. So right now we have a partnership. We have a family. We in Lake Worth Beach, we are a family, and we're just going to have a bigger family now. I'm really supportive of this project, and I'm really grateful that you came to us. And I also, in regards to the RFP and putting it out, that land's been sitting there for 10 years. If somebody wanted to develop it, they could have come and done it. So I think that for me, there are questions. Of course there's going to be questions. But I think that the overall project is so fabulous that whatever details there are can always be worked out. We just watched 80 slides. And probably for each slide, it was at least 3-4 hours of work getting all of that together. And you guys have really done a yeoman's job, whoever said that. Thank you to the CRA. Thank you to the city. Thank you to WMODA. And I'm really grateful that I get to be a part of this. I'm really excited. And I want a VIP card. All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. District 4, Mr. Diaz.
All right, I'm leaning in, I guess. I think you lose your VIP card if you break a glass piece, right? That's the rule.
You can't break
your band immediately. Okay. add me to the long list of thank yous. This is quite the process. I'll focus on one thing specifically, and you made a point of it, Renee. I think you're the only one about. I'll just thank you and appreciate you all for the flexibility that you guys have on especially the deal development process. I know it's not typical, and believe us, the five of us are often the biggest critics of our own process because we know it can be it can be tedious at times, but it's a necessary thing. I appreciate the signs out there, WMODA now. Unfortunately, it's not a thing that happens overnight. We have to go through this plan development process, and I definitely appreciate, both our staff, CRA and city, on undertaking the massive, monumental task of managing our 5 schedules.
Yeah, right.
Just to find meeting times, Milton be damned, and just getting the process together, because I think, as William said, there will likely be some tweaking and adjustments and things like that along the way, and we like to think that we do our best in facilitating that process as efficiently as we can. So I definitely appreciate that. And for the rest of the time, I want to maybe relay 2 questions. We obviously hear a lot from the community about everything that we deal with, and this is, of course, is no exception. And 2 of the top questions that I get, I would love to just get like your 60-second answer, one of which I know the answer to because I think, Bowler, you've already explained this to me, and it's really technical. And if you guys can just maybe talk about the top question, probably by far, that I've gotten. We don't get a chance to talk about
why don't
this.
you ask the 2 questions, and then
Yes.
you'll be done then they hands.
I'm getting there. We don't get a chance to talk about this, so I'm sure they get the same questions. But by far the top one is the subsurface parking garage and how it's 10 feet below surface. And obviously we have a storm, flooding concerns. You guys had a really good explanation to me about your confidence in addressing that. So do you want to give like a short, 60-minute... 60-second... 60-second, you did a really good comprehensive geo survey, all that stuff.
Okay, we'll stop the clock while they're answering.
Yeah.
That's a very good question. The subterranean parking garage really is, in my mind, a benefit. It's an extra expense that WMODA is going through. It does a lot of things. One of the things it does is when you have parking above ground, you have heat island effect, with all that asphalt, you're adding extra heat to the environment. This does not do that. Stormwater drainage. Right now, everything is contained underground. We're basically building a boat underneath there where the water stays out. So we have less on-site retainage onto the adjoining properties. So that is also a benefit. It also gives us more open space on the property, which we have developed into lush landscaped areas, pedestrian areas. So really, what it does is the unsightly parking that you have on surface lots, and the idea of building a structure up above, and parking garages generally are not very good looking. So what this does is it really hides that underneath. In terms of flooding, we are going to definitely waterproof it. We are working with consultants to make sure that it can't flood. We are also going to have storm barriers within the structure itself, to prevent that. And then we will probably also have, a backup belt and suspender system to, if water does get in there, we will be able to pump it back into the storm drainage. So, I really think it's a benefit to the community and definitely environmentally a better solution.
Thank you. Do you have another question?
Yeah, thank you. The short version, building underground in Florida, it's not impossible. It's just expensive, and you guys are very confident that you can do this, and you've expressed that. So I just wanted to get that out there because that's definitely a top comment, especially online and whatnot. The second question is more of an open-ended question, and that is just it's in regards. You've heard a lot about parking. Obviously, when we go through our hearings, that's going to be half the public comment, and the open-ended question is. And open-ended as in we can address it at hearings and other things, but your site plan, the mobility plan, you identified like J and K Street with street parking, and there's concern about what kind of analysis has been done to make sure that traffic on those residential streets aren't as impacted in the management of all these, all the traffic that you're luckily going to be bringing to the city. So, and that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Diaz. I just broke a tooth. Do you have an answer for that?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
So we will be required to do a traffic analysis as a part of our site plan evaluation. We've taken that into consideration in how we have designed the location of the entrance and exit of the underground parking, and taken all of that into consideration in the design itself. But in terms of the analysis and all the things that we're required, we will be doing that as a part of our site plan, and that will be open for public review and conversation, and we anticipate there'll be some tweaking that we might have to do if the studies bear out with pinch points.
Thank you. And just for everyone to know, I mean, this Brent talked about the parking study. We just got an update. I mean, our times are so tight. This came in, Wednesday? We're like literally just reviewing it, so it's all going to work together, and it'll come together. So thank you, and we definitely appreciate that.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I am an art lover. I am a lifelong and continue to be a member of the Metropolitan Museum of Art and the Norton. I mean, that's part of society. And my dream was to be the curator at the Met. So, Louise, I've got my eyes on your job. I want to thank you all. The staff especially has worked so hard. The WMODA folks have worked so hard. Like one of the gentlemen said, we're never going to please everybody with the design or whatever. But this is a definite positive move in our city, and we are grateful to the Wiener family and the passion that you all bring with it. Mr. Wiener, you're just wonderful. We love you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. The fact that this is a legacy project, that is from the heart, and what I love is I want to have a museum. I want to have my collection in a museum. But you're a businessman, and I want the museum to be sustained by the apartments. You're not going to be looking for money and fundraisers and stuff. It's a business thing as well as an art thing, and I love that marriage of the two. Really works well. Now I have a question. You are a 501c. Will you be paying ad valorem taxes?
Yes, we'll be paying ad valorem taxes on the parcel.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. I know a lot of people. I wondered about that, and I think it's great. I really don't have much else to say. I mean, yes, affordable is a word that we banter about, and it's not it's not what we would love. Not this project, but affordability on the scale in Palm Beach County. It's a whole thing. But I look forward to this. I look forward to the groundbreaking, the party, and being a regular. I live 2 blocks south. I live at 207 South L Street, so this is going to impact my life greatly, and I'm really looking forward to it. And change is hard. Change is hard, and people sometimes resist it, but this is something that we need. This is a great change for the positive, and thank you so much. Thank you. Now, with that,
Madam
thank
Mayor.
you, Sharon. She's very enthusiastic. Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to, yes, ma'am.
It's been a long day.
I just wanted to mention, as everyone leaves, it is still turtle lighting season through the end of the month, so it's going to be a little darker out there, so be careful getting back to your vehicles.
And as it stands now, the CRA meeting tomorrow is on, correct? Yes. All right, perfect. And with that, I am going to say good night, everybody. Thank you for your interest. Have a great evening.